2, 1. Oh. Hey, what's going on, guys? We're just making sure that we're live.
Yeah.
Doing a quick sound check here first.
Brief sound check.
But if you're tuning in, thanks for doing that.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks for stopping by. Want to make sure we're not too loud. Oh. Hey, what's going on, guys? Oh, yeah, we sound good. Just making sure that we're live. Yeah. Doing a quick sound check here first. Brief sound check. But if you're tuning in, thanks for doing that. Okay, all right.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. It's gonna be really weird when there's like that double echo of sound. It's
Don't
gonna
worry.
be like some sort of like weird Inception stuff going on. And
I got it turned off, but we can monitor the comments. So yeah, if anyone's watching right now, be sure to ride along with us. You know, we're talking about the Oscars today, as you know, the 90th Academy Awards, everyone's favorite movie award show, is happening tonight at what time, Zach? Was it 7 or 8?
I would assume probably 8.
Yeah, 8 sounds like a good time.
Someone check me on that.
Yeah, we don't know what we're talking about actually at all.
I don't have my phone near me.
I just
So
broke my pen. I'm nervous. Oh gosh. Oh
Here,
my
here,
bless. So, anyways, anyone that's tuning in, welcome to BitCast episode 52. Joining me this week in the studio, we have the movie maestro, Zach Flowers.
Happy to be here.
Zach, I'm happy you are here. I was talking to Tom Kudelik last time on this podcast about you because he and I were talking about the Black Panther.
Okay.
And he's like, yeah, I like movies. And I'm like, oh, well, let me tell you about a friend that I have.
I know a guy.
He knows movies, man.
It's happy to be back here for a second year in the row talking Oscars.
Yeah.
And
I think last year was our biggest show ever. We had at least like 10 people.
at least 10 people listened. It was great. I accounted for 7 of those times, but it's fine. I believe we also set the record last year for the earliest podcast.
Yeah, we were drinking coffee in that one.
And the longest, if I remember correctly. I think it was the first one that passed an hour and a half.
Yeah, it was. So hopefully that doesn't happen this time.
It
but
won't.
And we don't have as much to say, I don't think, about some of these movies.
We really don't.
So that being said, again, we're talking about the Oscars before they're happening tonight. So this is actually best viewed while or before the Oscars if you are planning to watch them.
Or just in place of the Oscars. I mean,
just
you could do that too.
Just listen to us talk about it, and we'll tell you everything that you need to know.
And just go on CNN in the morning and check who won. That's all you need to know.
It's that easy. So anything else? Really, just quick housekeeping. We're going to be doing some more topic submissions later. Anybody that wants to actually submit topics to the show, please do so, because I'm a big fan of that. I love reading off your submissions. But leave reviews on iTunes. Love seeing those. And if you do, I'll read them off on the show, give you a quick little shout out. And check out BitBloggist.com just to see what else we got going on over there. Drink of the show today is a lovely old-fashioned.
I'm already almost done.
A little too sweet this time.
Yeah, we used cuties instead of oranges because that's what we had in the fridge. So
and they're cute. They're cute. So I think it's appropriate.
It's not an apricot.
It's not an apricot, but it's not an orange. It's just right in the middle. So, anyways, we are going to be talking again about the 90th Academy Awards, and specifically, I think we have 11.
9.
9. I don't know where I got 11 from.
Last year. Was last year 11?
I don't even know.
I'll count. You read those off, and I'll count those.
We got a lot of titles to work through here. So stay tuned, and we will be right back. Oh, gosh. Oh, and we are back. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to turn this down up just a little bit. We're coming a little quiet. Evan Harris and Kate, thank you so much for tuning in to the live chat. If you want to just chat with us, let me know. I'm on my phone, on my digital device here.
He's not ignoring you. He's on the phone.
Hey guys, I'm gonna just send you guys a quick little message right there. Hey,
that's
what's up?
how you know. It's a host who cares.
So I actually listed these off in order of the alphabetical order.
That's what we did last year too.
How the Oscars had them listed off, but I didn't rank mine. So I had the ones that I think should win, but we can go from there.
Yeah.
So first on the list, Call Me by Your Name.
Your name. It's Jake
Your
from
name.
State Farm. Yeah.
Directed by Luca
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good luck.
Guadagnino.
Guadagnino.
And starring Armie Hammer and Timothy Chalamet.
Mm-hmm.
And that is really, those are the only two notable people that I recognize from this.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any. Yeah, it very much was a indie film, but not like an indie film like when Wes Anderson pulls one out, and it's like, here's 20 actors who you know from all these different movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely just the two were the ones that I recognize, and they used a lot of people who are either from France or Italy. More local things, like where I would look it up online. I was like, oh, this person actually has done a lot of stuff, but all in France. So that's why I've never seen this.
So, quick disclaimer: I have not seen this movie.
This is the one he didn't.
This is the one that I did not see. So I'm going to leave it to Zach to talk about this. However, I read the whole synopsis.
Yeah,
got an idea for what it's about, and it seemed very interesting.
It was a very it was a very well done movie. It handled the kind of it handled the topic of dealing with sexuality and trying to find yourself as you're a 17-year-old boy, and he has this on and off again girlfriend, and then he is also like attracted to Armie Hammer's character,
Oliver.
Timothy Chalamet, Oliver. Wait, no, Armie Hammer was Oliver.
Elio,
or
whatever
yes,
his name was. Yeah.
Elio.
Yeah.
So it was very well done. It was handled very well, beautifully shot. It almost I read about it where they actually took some of the almost like the filters that they used back in like the 1980s to give it that kind of early 80s vibe for shooting it. So it very much set you in this scene of like you're in this beautiful Italian
countryside,
and it's filmed in that way. That being said,
there's a long pause there.
Yes, it was, because I've been trying to
collect your thoughts.
I feel like it does not carry the weight that Moonlight carried.
Okay.
Moonlight, I feel like you were dealing with, and part of that's because it's not just dealing with sexuality; it's also dealing with race and race relations and all this other stuff. You're not getting that with
what it means to be a man, sort of, because that's like what it was talking about too.
Yeah, it Moonlight definitely hit more of that. This was more of like, you are who you are, and it's okay. The thing that I did like about it is that because it set itself in the 1980s, you were dealing with a time frame when it wasn't. It was kind of taboo to talk about, to have a discussion about sexuality. So they kind of, it's all kind of secretive and all this other stuff, and we're calling this a spoiler cast, correct?
Yeah. So if you haven't watched the movies, sorry, but we're going to spoil it for you.
It ends up basically getting to where he has a conversation with his dad at the end of the movie.
And his dad's pretty cool with it. He's like,
well, his dad,
I was there at one point.
Yes. Well, and I think the feeling I got from it, his dad was still there. His dad still had. So I don't know if he would consider himself bi, or I would assume. But just talking about, when I was your age, it wasn't okay for me to do that. So I just kind of repressed that, and I didn't talk about that. And so, I'm hearing this conversation with the dad. I'm like, is this basically like him berating his son for feeling this way? But it turned, and especially for early, 1980s, it was very...
it's like you're saying, like taboo.
Yeah, it was this taboo thing, but his dad is very much like...
chill. Totally cool with it.
Yeah, and it's just like, I've been there, and, don't let anybody tell you to...
how you should feel.
Yeah, or how to act and how to behave, if this is who you are.
Mm-hmm.
In the ending scene, you kind of, there's a phone call, and Armie Hammer is engaged and getting married, and literally the credits are rolling as Elio is staring into a fireplace, just crying.
Yeah,
and you're just kind of
the credits are rolling.
Yes, the credits are rolling. And they also did the credits a little bit too, like where they did a lot of the older movies would do a lot of the credits at the beginning of the movie. So it had a lot of that already done. So I don't know. There was a very 80s nostalgia feel about the whole movie in general. But it was good in that last moment. I was watching the credits, and I was like, this is the most that I've like felt for Elio's character most of the time.
In the credits when he's crying?
Yes, because the most of the movie he's spending kind of like, I don't know, he's being a selfish teenager where like
he's bouncing between people.
Yeah, he has this girlfriend who he keeps blowing off, and I felt more for her at times because not even dealing with the sexuality side of stuff, but she told him is like the one thing I don't want is to be hurt.
Yeah,
like I'm afraid that you're going to hurt me, and he ends up hurting her, and it's like she told you, in the dialogue in the movie, she told you it was. So
Ellie, you didn't listen, man.
Didn't listen. No, it was a very well done movie. I think you should see it at some point. You're not going to be able to look at an apricot the same way ever again.
That's the one thing, just, no apricots were harmed in the making of this movie. Well,
they were, but yeah, that was.
Or was it
a lot of the stuff? No, it was an apricot.
Okay.
Because they had like an apricot tree in the back.
Oh, okay.
A lot of the stuff was very tastefully done. That was the one thing I was like. This isn't really a sexuality issue at all. This is just like, ew. Like, and then there was you know what? You just got to make that judgment for yourself on how you feel about apricots after watching this movie. But that was the only thing that I was just like.
Because everything else was like tasteful, but
yes, it was very tasteful. Like even in like the sex scenes, you weren't seeing anything. It's all like panning, tastefully away and. Yeah, they handle all that really
I appreciate that because I do
Yeah.
feel like a lot of movies go a like sexual route to appeal to a certain audience. And,
Sure.
And like this is like a common complaint that I have with Game of Thrones, and this is not related to Oscars,
Sure.
but the story and kind of what they've developed over the course of these seasons is actually what is most interesting to me.
Yes.
And then whenever someone's apprehensive about watching Game of Thrones because of the sexuality, I do feel bad. I'm like, I completely understand. I was like, if that bothers you, it is unfortunate because it really like that stuff doesn't really even push the storyline at all.
No, I feel like the only one that actually pushes the storyline is like episode 1.
Yeah,
when you're dealing with Jaime and Cersei, and like that's the only time that I'm like, that makes sense,
and you understand
me, it makes sense
where they're coming from. But even still, you can imply that stuff without like it being super graphic, like HBO likes to be.
Yeah. So this was done very well, but that was the only part that it lost me, and I was like.
I don't know about all that.
Apricots.
Well, I'm not a big
but it was a very well done movie.
The soundtrack seemed really
soundtrack was great. Sufjan Stevens did.
I heard he had a trailer for that.
He had like 3. I think he has. I want to say, does he have 2 nominated for? I know he has 1 nominated for best song. He might have a second.
I actually didn't look at much else beyond the nominees. However,
I know that he's nominated.
That wouldn't surprise me because the trailer, just that the songs they had played were really good.
Yeah, and it ties in a lot to what's going on in the story too. So sometimes you'll have songs like obviously Disney and Pixar. It's kind of different because the songs kind of like drive the narrative. This was kind of more supplemental, but it tied in directly to what they were dealing with in that moment.
Yeah, that's cool. I just jumped to Randy Newman for a second. I'm sorry.
You got a friend in
me. You got it. You got it.
Yeah, no, but it was a good movie. I would be shocked if it won.
Yeah.
But for an indie movie dealing with some really tough stuff, like very well done. It just didn't have the weight that Moonlight have, where you're dealing like with the same character at 3 different points in his life and.
Yeah,
golly, that was
and I think an artistic. I mean, this one looked like it was shot beautifully as well. But from an artistic standpoint, Moonlight just had a bit more going for it as well.
Yeah,
it did. Loved a lot of scenery they had.
And I mean, I feel like the acting was a little bit
stronger.
Yeah,
Chalamet, did he do okay in this? I don't.
Yeah, no, Chalamet did really well. It seemed almost like a continuation of his role in Lady Bird, which we'll get to later. But like, it was very much that kind of like selfish, like whatever I want, I'm just gonna do.
I just don't care.
Yeah. Which I'm like, okay, that brooding teenage thing works for so long, but
1 movie per year.
Yeah. No, it was well done. I don't see it pulling a massive upset, which is what it would take. It would be a massive upset.
Okay, so I'm gonna write not gonna win.
Not gonna.
Not gonna.
I have a ranking list that's towards the bottom.
Okay,
good movie. Not an Oscar nominee.
Not an Oscar nominee. Yeah. Okay. Next one, Darkest Hour, directed by Joe Wright, and featuring Gary Oldman
a lock for Best Actor.
And we'll talk about this.
as Winston Churchill.
Yeah, Winston Churchill. Lily James as Mrs. Layton, or Elizabeth Layton, who was his typist / speechwriter, and then Kristen Scott, which was his wife, who was also I think she did a fantastic job. This. And I, just to give you some context for Joe Wright, he's also directed, I believe, Pride and Prejudice. I hope he's directed these. I just put these down for mine to be now.
He had a hand in doing some of these movies.
Let's just say he's known for Pride and Prejudice, Atonement, and The Soloist. All like pretty similar movies in how they are, like the mood is set for these.
Sure.
So he's gotten this before, and. Well, I guess we'll talk about it when we hit Dunkirk, but I just thought it was really interesting how these were like the same year dealing with this almost same exact timeline.
Did you have the feeling that like you wanted to watch like a 4-hour mashup of the two movies?
Yeah. Like just like smush them together to get an idea of what was happening at the beaches while Winston was back here doing all this stuff and sounding like Master Kai from Dragon Ball Z. Mr. Churchill, we must get the bombs.
Yeah, basically.
We must save our men.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate Churchill impression.
So what's interesting about this? So this is the one that Kevin Spacey was initially cast for, correct?
No, that was the one that Christopher Plummer took over for him, and I can't remember the name of it.
Yes, you're right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I got those two mixed up.
But Plummer was also nominated for.
Okay, good. I was gonna say, I was like, man, they did a really good job with shooting these scenes.
Yeah, no, it was always
okay.
Oldman was always there, and he from the get go, this was his stab at the Academy Award. He knew, like, I heard an interview basically where it's like he knew it would take something like this to finally put him over.
Get nominated, yeah. So it was actually very good. I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah,
I think it set a good tone. Throughout the entire piece, you kind of knew the situation. Like, I didn't know the whole situation. I didn't know he was disliked, because when you hear about Churchill, you just hear about how much of a hard ass he was, and how strong of a leader he was during this time. So everyone like obsesses over him, his cigars, and just all that kind of stuff. And it's just really interesting that they had him in that character the entire movie. Do you think he was smoking like real cigars?
He smoked $30,000 worth of cigars. And I don't think it was 300,000. I think it was 30,000. And gave himself, was it liver poisoning? Something like where like he got like super messed up because he was smoking so many cigars, but he stayed in character. Like he method acted the whole thing, and he's like, I will never smoke ever again. Doesn't matter the role, I'm not doing it.
Oh gosh, why'd they have to give him like super nice cigars? Couldn't they just give him like some...
Well, I think the idea of it was that those were the cigars that Churchill was smoking. So he literally went down to like the type of smokes and drinks that he was pumping out, and that's dedication.
Oh man,
stupid dedication. That's dedication.
Stupid dedication for sure. So I think this movie did a really good job of again giving you some context behind the political struggle that was going on at the time, and I couldn't imagine like how scary that must have been. Just the idea of like, we're being surrounded by the Nazi regime, and we want somebody strong to lead us right now.
And a lot of the argument from the politics side of it was we need somebody to lead us right now to negotiate with the Nazis to find a peaceful solution where we're not invaded, which
not at all what he did.
No, but I mean, props to him, because if he hadn't, then
would have been a different situation potentially.
Yeah. And the one qualm I have with this movie, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was very well done. There was no... It assumed you knew a certain amount about Churchill's background. Because, I mean, it kind of throws you into this bit where it's like, Churchill's kind of disliked, and he has these these strong perceptions about what should be done that people don't agree with, but there's no kind of backstory to why he was
where he came from.
Yeah,
they mentioned like briefly his failures previously. They're like,
and there was where there was an invasion into Turkey, basically to cut off the to link the supplies to the Russians in World War I. But if you don't know that and just kind of hints at that, and you're like, oh, cool. Well, he failed a little bit before, but
people don't like him.
Apparently.
Okay.
So that was my only qualm with it. Like, you could have spent an opening, scene or something like that with
going through a few of his.
Yeah, I mean, like biops are always tricky because you have to play the part of, okay, how much of the backstory do we have to tell to get to the point that we want to tell? And you're basically looking at the story in whole we're looking at what, 20 days or so? Basically the month of May and 40 or
month of May.
40, 41, 40.
40.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I should know that. I'm a social studies teacher.
Oh, come on, dude. So I think it was 41. It's not.
Yeah,
I remember 41 being a date. I don't know if that was the same one though.
Anyways, but yeah, you're looking at basically the period of 1 May in the early 1940s. That's how you get around it. The early 1940s. But that's all you're getting, and you get some allusions to previous events before that, or the failures of Neville Chamberlain for getting him to the point where they were
just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Where they were inactive and they weren't taking any action.
A lot of appeasement of Hitler, like the Sudetenland and the Rhineland and the invasion of Poland. Everybody kind of like, okay, we don't like that, but as long as you're not coming this way, we're gonna be okay.
Fine.
Yeah.
And then they eventually get there, and they're like, okay, we'll sign a treaty with you. Just be nice to us. And
so that's my only qualm. The acting was incredible. The plot was maybe a little too, what's the word?
Not far-fetched.
No, because it wasn't. It was true for the most part, but
a bit too like romanticized.
Yes,
because I feel like it was a lot more bleak. There was a lot more people freaking out and scared.
Yeah, and the whole scene on the subway didn't take place. It's factually inaccurate, but the idea. I mean, the idea you had a majority.
Tell me what you would do.
The majority of the people, did support, not giving in to Hitler and fighting back. Politicians weren't, but to say that like there was a magical scene where he found himself onto the subway and
just jumped out of the car.
It was a little too like romanticizing Churchill for what it was, because I mean there was a lot of failures and discrepancies, and for more of that, watch the first season of The Crown on Netflix.
A lot of fighting, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah. Okay. So this one, do you think has a potential chance to win?
It has a better shot than
Call Me by Your Name.
Call Me by Your Name.
Okay.
I don't think
better shot.
It will get the awards. I mean, Gary Oldman is a lock. Like,
yeah,
it's a lock, which kind of sucks for Daniel Day-Lewis because I think this is his last role, but you should have picked a better role.
It's his last role?
That's what I heard.
I don't believe it.
I don't either.
That dude likes acting too much to jump out of it.
Yeah, but his poor wife.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, so I don't see it taking home the big one. I wouldn't complain if it did. It's a little bit too far fetched for me to think it's gonna pull home the big one.
I got you, but overall, good film and gave some cool context to what was going on then. Quick shout outs to Cam Betts.
What's up, Cam?
Mary Dawkins and Hannah, my beautiful wife, for tuning on the comments here. Hannah says that her favorites are either Get Out or Lady Bird. And she said it's crazy how all these same actors and actresses are in the Best Picture nominations, how there's some overlap.
There's definitely some overlap.
And then Joachim just chimed in and said that's what Day-Lewis said 2 years ago about Daniel Day-Lewis quitting acting. So
that is true. That is true. I will give you that one, you Norwegian man. Isn't it like way past your bedtime?
Yeah, go to bed, Joachim.
Go to bed. It's like 1 a.m. or something like that.
Okay, so next on our list in alphabetical order is Dunkirk,
which coincidentally ties in right with Darkest Hour.
It does. So it's about the same exact time frame where you have 300,000 soldiers, mainly British troops, that are trapped on the beach, and they're trying to figure out how to get them out. And so Churchill orders this weird civilian fleet to go and save all of these sailors, and it's a wonderful story.
It really is.
However, it does. I liked Dunkirk because it gave you three different viewpoints, kind of not like Moonlight in the sense, but like
right. It's different point of views of the same. It's almost like Crash.
Yeah. Here's what happened in 2 hours. Here's what happened in a week. Here's what happened in a month. And the hours were was Tom Hardy's character, the pilot, Farrier, and then the other story was following the main guy you see in the beginning was Tommy, Fionn Whitehead, who I don't know has been in anything else. Which one was Tommy? He's the main guy that we follow around the soldier on the beach.
Okay. Yeah. And then there's Cillian Murphy and Mark Rylance.
Yes, who was awesome. Yeah. The boat, the civilian driving the boat to the beach.
Yes.
Yeah. And it really gives you like this. So where Darkest Hour was like a bit romanticized and seemed like pretty lax, this did such a good job of making you feel like the despair and stress. Sorry, I made you laugh about that one.
Yeah, the last
little bit right there, gotcha. We'll be back after this quick commercial break now.
That is the third time that's happened to me this weekend. Woo!
There you go, wrong pipe.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We're good. Yeah.
got some whiskey in your
a little bit
esophagus. It's burning.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's roll.
So this movie really made you feel how like desperate and just rough this was.
All by the sound of a ticking clock.
I was gonna say it was fully the music and the soundtrack in this.
There have been. I'm trying to think if there's been another movie where I felt like that pressed on time. Maybe Inception kind of gives you that same thing where you're battling against a clock.
Inception, one of the space movies made me feel that way too. Not so much time based, but
Interstellar.
The use of sound.
Yes,
which made you like there was like almost like no music for a while,
and it had the clock
and then it just builds up.
Oh no, gravity.
Yeah,
gravity.
Gravity is what it was.
Yes,
gravity. Sorry, Yukim said it's only 10 p.m. there, so. It's almost bedtime. We can talk you to sleep, Yukim.
Just listen to my voice and fade off into the darkness.
Welcome to the cool side of the pillow. So Dunkirk, though, again, not a lighthearted movie or really I wouldn't even say. I don't know. There wasn't even a lot of like. There was action. I don't know. I'm trying to describe.
There was definitely action. It wasn't driven by the dialogue. It wasn't reliant on that. It was more reliant on the actions that each character was taking in that moment. So you have like, I think probably the most dialogue is going to Kenneth Branagh, which as it should.
I love Kenneth Branagh.
Oh man,
he's the man.
That guy. But yeah, he's the one that has given you the kind of the expose of this is the situation we find ourselves in, and we have to get all these people off of here. So make these ships ready, and we're loading these people out, and
and remain hopeful, even though this is a terrible situation to be in.
Yeah, and the crazy part about that whole story is like, if the Germans just like punched right through, they could have.
Bad news.
They totally could have, but they were like. We'll just pick them off from the air. With our like couple of ships that we got flying overhead. Like,
I guess because they were thinking like we don't want to incur more losses.
Yes.
So let's just do the safest thing. That's the easiest.
And it's the same thing that happened in actually D-Day. Is they had all these tanks on standby back there, but like Hitler was like out of communications for whatever reason, and they couldn't get to him, or like maybe he was taking a nap and they were afraid to wake him up or something. It's crazy, but like. There's these two moments in World War II where literally if the Germans had made one other decision, it's ball game.
Would have been totally different, yeah.
Ball game. So it's, it's crazy to think about it as far as a history standpoint. But, you're driven by the actions in this movie. You're driven by this ticking clock in the back that's like, gotta go.
Yeah.
The Germans are coming. Gotta move.
Yeah.
And it's, you're dealing with Branagh trying to get all these guys on these ships, the last like actual real ships they have, and get them out of there. You're dealing with the civilian fleet coming back in to get them things. But it got a little tricky with the whole disjointed timeline because you're trying to keep up with.
You're trying to piece together how long these things took.
I mean, and you're dealing with we're at this one point with this one ship, and then. Now we're going to a different point of view, but we're jumping back 30 minutes, and now we're over here with the plane, and we're 30 minutes ahead of the previous.
Yeah,
it was a little loopy, but I expect nothing less from
Nolan.
Like,
well,
that's just what he does.
And luckily he gave context clues during a lot of the scenes to tell
He
you
did.
what had just happened or what was happening. So, like,
Mm-hmm.
when the civilian fleets were coming in, you heard the planes fly overhead, or you saw the planes fly overhead.
Yes.
You're like, okay, so this is like when they're passing right
Yes.
now, and it's taking them this less time to get to the actual men that are on the beach.
And you're dealing with like the dogfight in the air, but you're seeing it from like the point of view of the ship that's getting bombed by that German plane up there that's now being attacked by Tom Hardy. And
like his brain's got to be weird, man. Like
it really is. I mean, how else do you think of Interstellar?
Yeah,
Like he and his son are like, what if there's a wormhole?
And then this, and then this, and then this.
But the crazy part about like that movie with Interstellar is that they actually went and was like, is this scientifically possible, NASA? And NASA's like,
I mean, yeah.
as far as we know,
it could still
it could. Great movie. The disjointed timeline was the only thing that kind of throws you a little bit. Like if you can't keep up with that and figure out what's going on, you're going to be lost in the movie.
Well, and again, I think there wasn't like a lot of standout acting in this. It was you were more interested in the situation of each character, like you were saying. Like, okay, this is a pilot, this is a civilian, this is a guy on the beach, and the acting was okay. Like we even had a little cameo, not really a cameo. He actually had a decent sized role. Harry Styles in this one.
Harry Styles, yeah.
Harry Styles, and I heard that Nolan didn't even know how famous he was, which I refuse to believe that.
You don't wait.
Nolan, when he casted Harry Styles, when they asked him, they interviewed him later and were like, did you have any idea, like, when you were casting him, like, of his background? And he's like, had no idea he was this famous.
You know what? Actually, that kind of doesn't surprise me. Because I could see Christopher Nolan being one of those people who, like,
super
just
disconnected,
goes right into his work, and that's all he cares about. And then he's like, One Direction who?
Yeah, he probably doesn't know who I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you know One Direction is, but you would think as a like, when you're making a movie and you're casting,
you would know about
your casting
people.
director comes to you and says, "Hey, Harry Styles wants to audition for this.
This could really boost our numbers with the teenage population."
I'm assuming he or she probably gave him a drop of like a hint saying, "Hey, this guy is well known."
Yeah, but I mean, I think there's even a difference between giving him the hint and then being like, "Yeah, this is probably the most popular
teen sensation."
Yes, across the entire world.
But his role actually was actually cool because it wasn't distracting.
No, it wasn't.
Like if you didn't know who Harry Styles was, you wouldn't even think anything of it, really.
Yep.
Whereas like there's been other cameos in movies where you see someone who's super famous show up and it's kind of disjointing. You're like
Ed Sheeran in Game of Thrones.
Yes, yes. Gosh, that was. I mean, that was literally like, "Hey, I like your show. Can I be in it?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure. We like you too."
You just gotta sing a really sad song in a really high voice
over a campfire. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll do that. Sorry. So, anyways, Dunkirk, I do think has probably the best chance out of the three we've talked about so far. But again, I think because it's disjointed and it wasn't really strong in the acting department, I'm not sure about it yet.
Mm-hmm. I'll agree to that.
Better shot.
Mm-hmm.
But probably not.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now,
sorry, I'm trying not to like chomp on ice.
Yeah, you son of a gun! You're just leaving it in there.
Well, I'm just it's kind of just like
you're gonna sound like Winston Churchill. So this next movie,
God,
I did not see until a week ago.
HBO Go.
That's
how I saw
that
it.
or we rented it, one of the two.
Yeah. That's same.
Dude. Everyone that had just to give you some context, everyone that had like seen this movie like when it came out like at the start of this 2017.
Yeah, it's one of those weird movies that like kept the momentum it had from like the beginning of the Oscar season all the way up.
And everyone's just obsessed with it. And I had so many people tell me like, "Dude, you're gonna love it. You think it's so good." And I don't like scary movies. I don't like horror movies.
Fair.
I don't like scary
That's
movies.
Fair.
So I tend to try and stay away from those. And everyone I talked to was like, "You got to see Get Out." It's like not scary. It's more of a thriller kind of thing. And I was like, "Okay, I'll watch it." And I tried starting it once, and I just like I immediately was like, "I'm not in a place where I can handle this amount of stress right now, so I'm gonna back out."
It's quite stressful. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
But then we were doing this show, and I was like, "Well, I got to watch it." And wow. I was talking about this last time on because Daniel Kaluuya is in Black Panther, and so I was like, I mentioned that briefly, but Hannah and I did not take a breath the entire time. I feel like we watched this movie. I was super stressed out.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my goodness.
And that's
this is terrible.
And the crazy part about Get Out is that's literally if you're just talking about it being a horror movie, and that's the only context you're taking this in.
Yeah.
And it's like crazy stressful, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Like, how do I handle any of this? And then like you start peeling back the layers of the movie, and you're like, holy cow, this is deep.
Yeah, like this is actually how people sometimes feel around all of these situations, and put you sort of in the shoes in a more obviously exaggerated situation.
Sure.
But very real in the sense of like how uncomfortable it can be.
Yes.
And of course we're talking about race. And again, I am a white person, a white male, and Zach
I am too.
is a white male.
I definitely am.
And so that aspect of the movie, even me being a white male, I felt just a sliver probably of like the discomfort that Black people have to go through to
like all the time.
So,
Yeah. Anyways, intro to the movie.
Yeah. So, gosh, Jordan Peele directed this, and this is his first.
Hilarious. It's hilarious.
This is his first directorial debut, and just he might have had a hand in Keanu. I don't remember.
Yeah, but
He wrote.
It was a writing aspect of it, and
I looked through his writing career. He has written for like everything.
Yeah.
He has so many movies that he's written for and TV shows.
Yeah, and
Mad
obviously Key and Peele and Mad TV.
Yeah. Just
fantastic stuff. So when I see that he's doing a horror movie, like I was like, yeah, no, that's not.
We'll see how this goes.
Okay, cool, but
then you watch
that's
it,
weird,
and,
and then you're
"Dear
like,
Lord,
how did you do this? It's your first time.
you're a genius.
You are brilliant.
He really is, and I boldly stated this, but this is mine. So if I will be a little bummed if Get Out does not win. For a few standpoints, and I want to hear your reasoning for your pick. But just knowing that this is his first directorial debut, and I just feel like Daniel Kaluuya's acting in this was just outstanding.
Yeah, it really was, because there was never a moment that you're like, this feels fake or this feels forced. It was very much like, this is just a normal guy dealing with an extraordinary situation.
Yeah, and what starts out to be an ordinary situation.
Yeah, very normal, like meeting the girlfriend's parents for the first time. The only difference is that, he's Black and they're all white.
And he's trying to be courteous to that.
Yeah, and it's funny because you're starting the conversation, or he's the one that I guess that initiates it, which makes total sense of like, hey,
do you think we should tell your parents?
We probably should talk about this before we go into the situation, because I've had to deal with stuff like this my entire life. So do we need to have, and they're like, no, it's totally fine. My dad would have voted for Obama a third time if he could have, which I would have too.
Oh my gosh. And then you see how it all plays out. Like,
yeah, it's so, if you haven't seen it, first of all, just sign off, log out, go see it. Go watch it. It's on HBO. It's still actually in theaters. AMC did actually some cool things where it started bringing back all the Oscar nominees into the theaters, which is the only way I got all these things done.
Nicely done, sir.
Yeah.
Movie Pass.
This is definitely brought to you by Movie Pass.
Sponsored by Movie Pass.
Not really, but it should be. But it you're put in this position from the very get-go. You're dealing with, do we need to have this discussion about race? And Alice Williams' character is like, no, we're good.
It's fine.
Like my parents are great. They're weird. They're like super kooky, and it's like this like rich white neighborhood type deal. But like,
it's fine.
They're totally cool with everything. Little did he know.
So, and that's what I love about this. Like every single thing was explained. There was no, and that like, the typical horror trope or thriller trope is like, somebody's always stupid in how they go about something.
Yes.
Like, oh, dude, like you're an idiot. Why would you go, explore this, or why would you go just wander into this situation? Like he was actually very careful and methodical about how he was approaching things. And
and he even has the
wise from the get go about
his
this
TSA
stuff.
buddy who's like, Tony, man, don't go. Like he was almost that like rationale thing where you're like, yeah, you're doing what all of us are doing at home. Like,
we're all thinking this.
Don't go in, but like it was not, everything was very much like, I need to check things out, but I'm not going to be stupid about it, and I'm not going to go like wandering into the woods by myself.
Yeah, so you were always like questioning, and you knew something was weird. I knew the context going in that it was going to be a thriller, so I was like, okay, I know what's going to happen, and you can tell by the trailers and everything else. But like what you don't see is because like I mean, so you once you figure out that like she can hypnotize people, the mom, you're like, okay, so maybe she's hypnotized like his girlfriend or her daughter,
or you are introduced to these different African American characters, the caretaker, the cook, and like different things, and you're like,
maybe they're all hypnotized.
They're all hypnotized. They've all been brainwashed some way,
and he's going to save them.
Yeah, something of the sort.
Yeah,
and it's so much deeper than that.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like it takes like as soon as you figure out like what they're able to do, it just takes like it's like full speed, like just crazy like shock and all the entire time.
And I listened to an interview with Jordan Peele, and he's like, the crazy part is that the procedure that we have them doing, where they basically leave a portion of like the cerebral cortex in the brain and then replace the same, the brain with a different brain. He's like, that's been tried on mice and it works. He's like, we're not. I mean, obviously,
that's not that unbelievable.
It's not. He's like, we actually have seen this work on mice. So, my coming up with this idea, it's not one of those things that's like, oh well, man, really good movie, but there's no way that could happen. He's like,
it could happen.
It could happen, and this is things like when you talk about. So you're dealing with this whole racial issue and the almost like, I don't know if envy is the right word, but I guess that's a lot of what we're dealing with, going, man, if I was a golfer back in my day, and if I was able to be like Tiger,
or I wish I had your eyes.
Well, that was the only one that I'll actually be like, okay, I don't think that one necessarily deals with race, because even he said, going into it, he's like,
I don't care,
bro, it's not about race. It's about the fact that I'm blind and you have an incredible eye for art and the shot. So I want your eyes, and that's why I'm doing this whole procedure but like everything else is like, yeah, I was a golfer, and Tiger's my favorite golfer, and like it's like that envy of Tiger's ability, and then you're dealing with
her brother, who is like, man, if you watched MMA, he's like,
yeah, if we could train you, we could make you like a crazy, like, it's all this like like backwards glorification of the African American body, like or the talent or whatever that is, just talking about
how great,
how great it is, but not. It's not in like a celebratory.
You're separating it. You're looking at only like what their body is, which is basically how all of slavery and everything else started.
It's Jordan Peele, was talking, and he was like, it's not necessarily about like, when you look at that, it's not that we're saying, when you're dealing with the brainwashing issue, and like, well, maybe it is slavery, but when you talk about this whole thing of like envying them for their abilities or for their looks or for whatever, and that's all we're focusing on, and then we're replacing that person with somebody else's mind, it's still slavery. Like, we're still dealing with all these things that are super racist and super prejudiced and all these different things that we will look at the person based on the color and immediately make some sort of analysis of them. Okay, well, I need to... It was along the lines of like that. Oh, no, I'm not racist. I have plenty of black friends.
Yeah.
It's that same type of deal. Like,
I love Obama.
It's like the... It's the Donald Trump standing up there and be like, yeah, there's my one black over here. He's my black. See, they like me. Like, it's that same type of mentality of, if I can point to a couple of instances where I have, these supporters or these friends or whatever, or some contrived things of going, I'm not racist because of this.
Yeah.
Typically that means you're still racist. And Jordan Peele's like, he's like, look, everybody's racist. Pretty much. Like, we all deal with this idea, the way that we've set ourselves up in society from the get-go is that we separate ourselves, and we're this tribal mentality of, we're all going to be with people who we're like or look like us, or however we separate ourselves. Like, there's that idea of, we're going, we're all doing this. Not everybody to the same degree, and some people know how to handle it better. But this argument of like we're in this post-racial society where we had a black president, so now we never have to deal with race again. Like,
and that is clearly not the case.
That is not the case. Definitely not. And so it's so well handled. Of like we are shining the light. We're just turning it back around on you. You're watching this movie and you're going. I think Jordan Peele's quote was like, and if you're a white person seeing this and you're not woke, then maybe you're gonna watch this and you're gonna go, I think I do some of these things, so I really need to think about what I'm doing. He's like, I want to have this discussion. I don't want this to be ignored. I don't want this to be like we're in a post-racial society, so we don't have to talk about this anymore. So he's like, I want these discussions.
Well, and forgive me for if this is wrong. Didn't it get nominated for comedy or something like that? Get nominated?
Yeah, well, yeah. Yes. And that was for the, I don't remember which award show, but yeah, it was in that like comedy category, which is also the same category they put musicals in. So I'm like, we have drama and then we have everything else. And it's
like, this more closely aligns with drama, if anything. I was like, there
are comedic aspects of it.
There were probably 2 scenes that I noticed that were actually funny.
The TSA agent.
It was a TSA, his friend, and the one moment where he's at the house and he goes to give the guy the nuts and he just grabs his hand. Yeah. And I laughed at that. I was like, that was pretty funny.
Oh, it's so awkward.
So
yeah,
I don't know. Just again, I think this has a great shot at winning because of what you're talking about. It addresses all of those issues and all those things that people may not be aware of in such a graceful and smart way.
Yes.
And also like this movie is just crazy, man. Like
it really is.
Allison Williams, who plays Rose, like his girlfriend, she was the scariest. Like she was the craziest person.
I feel like everybody else in the movie kind of like had their rationales for what they were doing. Like like Bradley Whitford, who I love Bradley Whitford, one of my favorite actors.
Is that the dad?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah. So like he has this whole mentality of like, I'm carrying on my father's work and I wasn't ready to let my father go. So I found this way that I could, to do this.
Mm-hmm.
The mom's just weird.
A bit
and then
controlling.
and then the brother's like, oh, this aggressive, macho, everything.
Maybe like abusive alcoholic. I don't know.
Somewhere along that line. And then there's Allison Williams, who's just, it's like so deceitful, but it's so cold.
Oh,
the way she handles that last thing, she's like, I have the keys right here.
Yeah, you like,
and she goes like after him at the end with the gun, and you're just like,
the entire time you are actually like thinking like, oh, maybe she's unfortunately brainwashed too by her parents, and like maybe there is some good in her,
or it's just been so pulled over her eyes that she hasn't seen,
doesn't realize
this is going
on. So you try to believe, like I really did not see that where she was going to be one of the people that was involved.
They opened the door and there's all the pictures of the other guys.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And then you hear it like saying, I don't know if it was the same time, but it was the caretaker, I think. He's like, yeah, you're one of the lucky ones or something like that. You got to, it's much better than, I forget the brother's name, Jeremy?
Yeah, Jeremy.
Much better than Jeremy's like smash and grab methods. Because you see in the very beginning how
he takes down the other guy.
Yeah, he just beats him up and takes him. And I was like, oh, this is
which, and even that opening scene, a black younger guy in a well-to-do neighborhood, and he's talking to himself. He's like, I'm not doing anything wrong, kind of, and even that kind of like, you can't watch that scene without being like,
that sucks.
That's Trayvon Martin right there. Like that's that same situation where a guy is being followed for no reason outside of he's black.
Yeah. He's like, nope, not today. I'm gonna turn around. I'm just gonna walk the other way. I'm just gonna be smart about this. And it's oh gosh, yeah. So
it's such a good movie.
Like we unfortunately cannot do it justice solely on the fact that we haven't experienced any of that.
Please watch this movie
personally. But it was just so well acted and written, and like just the end resolve of like figuring out that the caretaker and the maid are the grandpa and grandpa. I was like, dear Lord.
Well, even that ending, like he gets like the caretaker gets flashed, that like brings him back for that moment of like, I'm not in my body, and it's like he or this isn't my mind, and it's like he takes out the girl and then like turns on himself, and like and it's just like that realization of
I'm never gonna.
This is my body, but I will never be.
I can't get it back.
I can't get it back.
Yeah,
and like even just that kind of like subtlety of how that's handled at the end, you're like,
that's heavy.
Holy cow! I don't know how to explain this movie, but this is amazing, and everybody needs to see this, and everybody needs to like.
I agree.
Be open with these conversations and not just try to like, hey, no, I have black friends, so I'm not racist. Like,
no,
and that's a much larger discussion about how we handle race and talking about it in society in general, because like we can't just not have these conversations, because then it just ends up being this free for all hatred towards
people. Build up this idea in their heads, and it just gets worse and worse.
And the cool thing, I was listening with this, the last thing I heard in this interview is that Jordan Peele actually has, I think he said he has a couple more movies that he wants to do in like the next 10 years that deal with what he calls these social monsters.
I like it.
And so like, he's going to push the envelope. He's going to talk about all these things. He's going to keep making movies like this, and it's going to be fantastic, and I can't wait.
Oh, so again, like bravo to Jordan Peele.
Oh, bravo.
For such a phenomenal first debut into directing. And the only thing I'll say about this last little tidbit about Get Out is you can almost kind of see some of the tone and like mood that you would see in like a Key and Peele like joke sketch, how like it got kind of dark and like a little bit,
but we're still like
scary.
We're joking,
still funny.
We're messing around with this, but we're very clearly making a point.
Because if you saw the Continental Breakfast skit, it's really funny. It's about like Jordan Peele's the one, and it's a Continental. He's freaking out about like the Continental Breakfast and like had no idea, but he's been like it gets turned on its head, and it's kind of like. Not The Shining, but where he's lived there the whole time and doesn't realize that he's insane, and he keeps coming back for the Continental Breakfast, and it just loops over and over and over again.
It's that Groundhog Day mentality of
but
it,
kind of like a weird that was kind of like thoughtful and like a bit more than just a funny skit about Continental Breakfast.
Sure.
So, anyways.
A little bit more than Aaron Balake.
Yes, still hilarious though. Oh man, I really just love to Get Out. So
great.
That one I hope has a good chance to win, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Up next, Lady Bird, directed by Greta Gerwig, who I don't.
Did she get nominated for Best Director?
I should have looked into this. I'm sorry.
I think she did. I really hope she did.
I don't know. So I wrote down stuff that she's known for as well. Nights and Weekends, which I have not heard of.
I have not either.
So I think this is when I looked up directed, I got better about this as I went on. It was Lady Bird and then Nights and Weekends. So the two things that she's directed. And I think Nights and Weekends was like 2008. So it's been a minute for her since she's directed something.
Yeah.
But this features Saoirse Ronan, who is from
Saoirse Ronan.
She's in Brooklyn.
She was in what else was she in?
Couple of pretty good nominated films and just well-made films. So
she's gonna be in Mary Queen of Scots.
Yes.
That's
so she's actually she's a talented actress.
Very talented.
Metcalf is Laurie Metcalf is her mom in this one, which I thought she did a great job as well. Lucas Hedges, Danny O'Neill, he was in something else. Well, I think in another one of these Oscar noms that I forget which one it was, but I've seen him too multiple times in movies, and then Timothy Chalamet,
who's
again
literally playing the same role, just
character.
like 20 years down the road, and
moody teenager in high school who's
Sacktown, California,
angry, But overall, this movie. So again, we probably have a harder time relating to this because we are male, but I think the idea is interesting because it's talking about. Mother-daughter relationship, and growing up to kind of go into your own, make decisions for yourself, and then kind of what that looks like. And I don't know. It was actually like a heartwarming, kind of funny story.
This was probably. I'm looking real quick. I'd say that this is the lightest movie of the bunch.
It was
the most kind of like, oh.
That's nice.
She called her mom at the end of the movie. I can relate a little more to this one just because it's dealing with senior year. And I teach seniors. And I see all this kind of like drama between everybody and like not trying. So I'm like, it was very much like watching like, oh my gosh, I'm looking at the story of my my seniors,
class, yeah,
who are trying to like go off and do, go to New York. And I'm like, okay, cool, but like, how are you gonna do this? Like, what's
your game plan once you get there?
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's just like, so that part of it, I was like, wow, this is way too close to what I actually teach.
This is
every
too
single
real,
day.
man.
It's a little too real. But no, it was a very good movie. Acted really well, but nothing seemed over the top. Everything was very, I don't know, just very like, here it is. It didn't seem...
It was plain.
It didn't... Which is not a bad thing. Like, it's very indie. It's very, almost like...
the way it was filmed reminded me of a little like Wes Anderson style shooting.
Yes.
Where there was like some interesting frame shots and like quick pans to like different scenes.
Yeah.
I noticed that. I was like, this definitely feels more of like an indie film.
Yeah, and I mean, you get the music, which makes it, feel like it, and it's just... It didn't take itself too seriously while making it a very well-told story of we're dealing with a mother and a daughter and how we interact with this and that whole notion of, she always runs to the dad because the dad understands her, and, the mom and her are so similar that they just butt heads all the time, and that whole scene in the thrift shop.
Yeah,
like arguing, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so fantastic!" That's great.
I love that scene. Yeah, there was a line. It was like she just cares a lot. She just loves you a lot, and she just cares about you. And like it was actually like it was like pretty. It was like heartwarming, but also like sad to see how much she actually did care for her. Like when she was leaving and she couldn't even get out of the car because she was like going to be so sad about it.
She like flips it around and tries to get there, and it's just too late.
Yeah. Don't worry, we'll see her soon. But yeah, it was I don't know. Yeah, it was a funny story. There was like I think Sayors did it, or I'm saying her wrong.
Saoirse.
Is that how it's
Saoirse
pronounced?
Ronan,
really?
yeah, Saoirse.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not at all what it looks like.
Yeah, I know.
Saoirse.
It's
Dang
Irish.
it.
Irish.
Thank you for not warning me on that one.
Sorry, we covered Chalamet at the beginning, but not Saoirse.
Saoirse
Ronan.
But no, I think again, yeah, this is just like a funny but like realistic depiction of probably like what a high school senior looks like.
Yeah.
The debate about going to prom or not, if they wanted to go, like it was kind of stupid. I don't want to go. She goes.
She's like, wait, I really do want to go, and I want to hang out with my other friend that I've been ignoring this whole time. I'm like, I literally see stuff like that.
She falls in with like the cool crowd right near the end, but then realizes that they all kind of suck, and then comes back out, and it's just
It's a very Sacramento movie.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I worked in Berkeley for a year, and I knew a lot of people from the Sacramento area, and I was like, wow, this is very Sacramento. I mean, even if you start driving up around Sacramento or just south of it, and you're like, yeah, this is just a giant. The whole letter about when she's talking with the nun, and they're talking about the writing that she did about Sacramento, and it's and the nun's like, it seems like you really love Sacramento, and she's like, I guess I'm just really. She'd say observant or something like that. I think
observant, yeah.
And she's like, sometimes, being observant is really, another way to say that you love it. And it's just that kind of like, the whole story is just like, it's this love letter to Sacramento, which is so weird because like no one's ever like, I want to make a movie about Sacramento.
And we don't know, I don't know Sacramento, so I'm just like, yeah, I guess that's realistic.
Yeah.
I love like when she lied about the house that she lived in, and then like how
it turns out that being
came back to bite her in the butt. Like, yeah, and she, like her friends like, hey, I'm at your house, and it's like, oh god, no.
But even the friend who's like, definitely the more kind of like stuck up. Even then, at the end when she finds out that she's been lying, it's kind of like,
okay, it's fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't have cared.
Yeah. And it is so true though, because like I mean I can think of situations in my life where like I've fabricated some details, like just because I was like afraid to like admit like something that like wasn't true. It's like, oh yeah, like I've done that before.
Like my family, we lived in apartments the entire time, so it's not like you want everybody to know like, yeah, I live in an apartment complex.
It's cool. Let's go to your house.
Not knocking at mom or dad, but I'm just saying like it's not like as a kid growing up, you want to have this persona of like, my life is grander than what it seems like.
Which is wrong.
Sure.
Because that's something you learn from school. Where
yes.
Like, immediately you're like,
and you learn, down the road, you get out there and you go, yeah, none of that really matters.
That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
We learn that like having stuff or having like nice things means that you're like automatically cool.
Yeah.
And then you learn that like, that doesn't mean anything actually.
No, it really doesn't.
Yeah. So
take that from me, kids. It doesn't.
So overall,
good movie.
Good film.
I have it ranked pretty high. Like I think at some point, which it almost happened last year. Like I feel like the Oscars shy away from like the real like happy-go-lucky movies.
La La Land.
La La Land, you were so close. You were so close.
Gosh, that was so awkward though when they announced
It's
the
hilarious.
wrong one.
Man, I loved it. It was great.
So bad.
So great. But I mean, Moonlight definitely deserved. I mean,
Yeah,
don't get me wrong.
I agree.
But yeah, I don't know if it'll happen tonight. But there's gonna come a time soon to where I mean, I guess the last like real like happy-go-lucky one would have been The Artist.
Yeah.
The black and white like silent film like a while back. I'm trying to think of like everything else has been like super serious, like Spotlight or
It's not
Argo, or like everything. It's like it's the one that has the most weight to it, not necessarily which one is like the best movie.
And if you think about it too, the ones that have more weight tend to give the actors a bit more.
It does
to work off of. Like,
it does.
Hey, we need you to like display these emotions.
Yeah.
Whereas like if it's a happy movie, really. Majority of the time, I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking of like great movies that I like that are happy, which is like Little Miss Sunshine, stuff like that.
Sure.
Like those, I don't think those got nominated.
Yeah, it did.
They got nominated, but did they win?
I want to say it did.
Okay, so there you go.
I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Someone fact check us on that.
But I think of great movies like that, and I'm like, okay, but that movie won because they were able to display different emotions in it. Like there was like the turmoil of like the kid not realizing he couldn't go to like flat school, and like Steve Carell's character like going through what he's going through. So it's just I don't know, and it was happy at the end. It was like, it was.
I mean, it's so. I think the more that indie movies are kind of accepted, which the past couple of years you've had those nominated. You're talking, like Boyhood, Lady Bird.
Even
like,
though Boyhood was directed by.
It was, but the way that it was shot, it still
Gotcha.
kind of had that very indie feel, and it was very unique in the fact that we're shooting over 10 years or whatever it was.
Wasn't Scorsese? Who was it?
No, it wasn't Scorsese. It was
a well-known director.
Someone fact check us on this one.
Fact check, please.
We'll check in on the comments in roughly 30 seconds when this delay is over.
Yeah, we probably won't get a fact check anyways.
No, we won't. Joachim, wake up. Yeah, but I like the movie. It was good.
Yeah. I don't think it'll win either.
No.
I don't think it'll win. I don't know if you said it wouldn't win, but
No,
I don't think it'll win.
I have it rated pretty high on my list, but not the winner.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So up next.
Oh.
Okay.
I feel like we can spend 2 minutes on this and be done with it.
That's fine.
Okay, cool.
I feel the same way. So Phantom Thread, directed by Paul Anderson, who's directed some pretty good films.
Yeah.
Punch Drunk Love, There'll Be Blood.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Boogie Nights, a couple other things. So, and starring, this is important.
Daniel
Day-Lewis, and I don't know who Vicky Krieps is, or Creeps, or Krieps.
I think it's
who plays Alma, obviously, but
Cripes, probably Cripes.
Yeah, I don't. Just again, this is one where it is a full acting chops movie.
Oh, it's all chat. It's all acting,
and that's great.
Yes,
but it does not make for an exciting movie.
No, no, it doesn't.
There is some intrigue in like, okay, like who's he gonna fall for? Why is he this way?
Yeah.
Okay, you poisoned him.
Yeah.
Right.
To make him sick for a couple days where he would need you. Acting was great.
Cinematography was good.
Cinematography was great. Costumes obviously were great because it's the entire movie is focusing on dress design.
Yeah.
But man, it was so dry.
Got the headphone on the mic on the headphone.
Oh man, it was.
So I feel the same way, and I don't know what much else to say beyond the fact that this movie, it is like I feel like there's always a movie like this every single year where some director or some actor almost was just like, yes, I want to tell this story and I'm going to give it everything that I have, and they do that. But unfortunately, the content behind the story is just not exciting.
This would have been laughed out of the conversation last year.
Yeah,
he would have gotten his nomination for Best Actor as pretty much anytime Daniel Day-Lewis touches a movie.
Because he's crazy.
And he's so good. Good Lord, he's good. But it just, there was like, I didn't feel any weight. I didn't feel any connection to these characters. I didn't feel any like.
And maybe they wanted you to feel that way.
Maybe, but like, why?
Because the whole idea is that he is selfish and he's really he's just kind of going through all these women and not really forming a relationship, and then finally he meets Alma, who challenges him.
Yeah, but even then, it's like, okay, make me feel that, connect me there, because
you don't even really see a change.
No.
You don't even see a change in him. No. And you just realize that she's crazy.
You only see the change in him when he's like sick and needs her, and then there's a little bit of rebound where he like acknowledges her, and then he's back into his work and completely being terrible.
And then she poisons
him again and takes care of him. And I'm just.
And do you think he recognized that she was poisoning him the second time around?
Yes.
Okay, so he accepted that.
Yes.
He was
and he knew that that's what he needed in that moment. And I was like,
that's dumb. Hannah, if you ever try to poison me, I will be very upset with you. Please,
Leah, you can poison me. I love you.
Please do not poison me. Okay, so let's just go to the next one.
Yeah, because it's not going to win.
Yeah.
That's my 9th ranked movie. And again, if this was last year, it's not even going to be nominated because I think a lot of these movies aren't even going to be nominated if it was last year.
Freaking Lion was an overshadow.
Ah, Lion.
So many tears. We don't have to talk about that. I'm so sad. So next we had The Post, directed by Steven Spielberg. And if you don't know his name, then you gotta
just. Why are you watching this?
Yeah, you gotta do something else. Jurassic Park, Minority Report, just a lot of
Indiana Jones,
just a lot of well-known things, guys.
E.T., Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Jaws,
Mm-hmm.
Schindler's List.
Ooh, such a good movie.
Post was good.
Post was good. Meryl Streep, I think, will probably, if she does not, she
won't.
She'll get. Does she have a nomination for this?
I would assume because it's Meryl Streep.
I know she wins like every single time. Hannah. So I have to admit something else to you. I'm not proud of. So I fell asleep during this movie a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Okay. So again, this is a dialogue-heavy movie. There's a lot more intrigue though and questions going on the entire time.
Yes.
You're interested in like, oh, okay, so like,
yes,
they aren't supposed to be posting this, and they're like, this is a real thing that happened. So it is like, oh wow, that's a big deal that they're divulging this information,
pen on papers and all that fun stuff.
And I would just love to see, like, I mean, it's not the same thing, but it is kind of like the whole like Russian election stuff.
Yeah, it pulls a lot of the same. I'm assuming that's intentional, kind of keeping the parallels same of going, okay, there's this big cover-up that's attempting to happen, and then there's these people trying to print them, and they're being censored, and,
fake news.
Yeah, all that fun stuff.
I honestly was Tom Hanks in this also, just in case you're wondering. But
he was good.
He was good.
It was well acted.
It was to me, it was boring. I'm sorry.
When I watch movies like this, dealing with how the media handles, news and these big stories that they're trying to get out there, I will compare it to 2 movies: All the President's Men and Spotlight.
Spotlight's so good, and
it doesn't come close to touching those. Like, I feel like The Post kind of was more like it was a very important thing. It wasn't like this is something that we were just like, oh, we're making a story about this. But when you're talking about the weight of the Watergate scandal or the weight of the Catholic priest abuse thing that turned out to be like affecting thousands and thousands of people all across, the United States and across the world, and like that went all the way up to like the Vatican, where they're having to deal with this whole ordeal. Like, it was like, okay, the Pentagon Papers have been lying to us about Vietnam, which is a huge deal. It wasn't told that way. There was no, there wasn't the weight that when I'm comparing this to Spotlight, and I'm going,
they tried to make it, they tried to make it feel like it had weight again.
Yeah.
But there wasn't really weight to it. In the movie, because you're just like,
because I mean, like, you know what happens. Pentagon Papers get published. That's what it is.
That's it.
But that's like with I knew the whole story with the Boston Globe and them exposing the Catholic priest. But when they tell the movie and you see Mark Ruffalo like freaking out and the thing because they're not going fast enough, and he's like, no, we have to nail these scumbags, and like blowing up and this whole thing, and you're like,
oh yeah, he's passionate.
Holy cow! And then you're trying to deal with the same thing with like Tom Hanks, which I love Tom Hanks, but it's just like it did not carry the same weight. And
we have to tell the news.
Yeah, it's very much like it was a nod at like we're living in a time where people are claiming that the news is fake and that we're in it just for the ratings and all this other stuff. And like,
here's what the news had to do this many years ago.
And it definitely worth telling. It's just not going to win.
Yeah, again,
it was good. It's just not going to win.
Yep,
we don't.
Hannah, so Hannah, she did not like Meryl Streep's voice in this. She was like, it just sounded like she had a bubble in her throat the whole time when she was talking, and it was horrible.
It was a. I mean, clearly she's going off of the recordings they had from. Where's the name? What's her name? Kay Graham. Yeah. Going off of how she actually sounded, but I was just like, could have kind of avoided.
Thank you for your kind words. We're like, okay, all right, there it is.
Yeah, let's move on now. But yeah, it was good movie. Just when you're comparing it with previous Oscar winners, that deal with very similar type topics, it just doesn't hold a light.
All right,
it was a little disappointing.
Well, there you have it, guys. The Post probably not going to win.
No,
but this next movie will not win either.
No.
However, I'm a big fan of the director. So, The Shape of Water.
Yes.
Guillermo
del Toro.
Guillermo del Toro. That took me 7 tries.
It did.
He directed Pan's Labyrinth, which I'm a huge fan of.
And it's such a better movie. I'm sorry.
I know.
It's such a better movie.
I agree. So good. Even like Pacific Rim, dumb but fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
And Hellboy, kind of same concept. Dumb but fun. Pan's Labyrinth, though, is just...
It's so good.
If you kind of like fantastical but like realistic, gritty, historical movie kind of feels, so good. This movie, I went into it very excited.
I did too.
Because I liked the idea. I was like, okay, Guillermo's behind this. I like the idea, like the intrigue behind like this creature that they've captured and like what that's going to be. And
I was even open and receptive to like the whole like however they're going to handle this love story, because that going into it that she like understands this on a different level.
Yeah, and you see the picture on like the cover where like they're holding each other in the water. So like, okay, they like each other. What's this going to be like? And
but it got weird.
It got weird, and it kind of fell flat too.
It did a little bit, yeah.
Which is a bummer, because I think the movie did well when you were trying to figure out this creature, and there's a lot of like intrigue building up to like, oh wow,
and you're dealing with like the Soviet spy ring and all this other stuff, and they're trying to figure out what to do with this.
That felt kind of like tacked on.
It did,
because like that was like a trope of like olden day comic books.
Well, and you can take Pan's
Russian
Labyrinth.
spies.
You take Pan's Labyrinth, and you're putting that in like around the same era of World War II, where the Spanish military is trying to put down some guerrilla fighters. So like you have that extra, like, not necessarily directly related to the story, but also, like you're dealing with the same type of idea, but that one felt like it wasn't as like affecting of the story.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, and this one there was like an actual Russian doctor.
It felt a little bit too.
I don't know.
It was okay. It was very well done. It like. The creation of the world that you were dealing with was fantastic. The
lab, the whole scene.
Yeah, and even the characters are really great. Like the way that they're developed. You're having you're dealing with all these different. I mean, you're dealing with a lady who has
Octavia Spencer, or
Eliza. No, Eliza, where she's mute, and then you're dealing with her neighbor who is gay, and Octavia Spencer, who is in the working world, but as an African American woman, where there's only certain jobs that they can kind of get in this particular thing, and you're dealing with all of these like marginalized segments of the population, and then on top of that, you're throwing in this monster man.
Yeah,
which
monster man,
whatever. That's like
the asset.
But you're dealing the asset. You're dealing with all these different segment. So it's all stories that you kind of want to be told, and like how are they feeling this whole thing? It just like you kind of get to the end, and you're like,
oh, that's it.
Oh, there was only really one person coming after him the whole time, and it was just one kind of guy who got.
Yeah. So,
I was really hopeful. I really liked the movie.
Yeah.
Best Picture.
No. I liked it as well, but again, I think, and again, this is my own personal issue with it, and it really wasn't as perverse as I thought it was going to be, but like the sexualization stuff, like, where she's like masturbating in the water and stuff like that was just, I was like, oh, okay,
that was jarring.
I was like, and again, it's one of those things like that doesn't add to the story,
no,
but then it kind of it sort of ties together at the very end when you're like, okay, she was a fish person the whole time.
Well, no, but the scars that she had from the surgery that caused her to be mute ends up turning into the gills where she can breathe underwater. Like
how does that work?
It was a little like, which it's Guillermo del Toro. Like it's not supposed to be fully realistic.
It doesn't have to make sense. Yeah.
No, but it still was.
It was unfortunately just a little bit. It just kind of fell flat. There's like they were trying to go after too many ideas.
Yeah, and it had like super hype on it.
Yeah,
super hype.
I would have been happier to give more context to the actual asset and see kind of like his background and like where he's come from.
Yeah,
maybe she goes there somehow, and then they come
Shape
after
of Water 2,
and then they come after them. They like track her or something like that. That would have been kind of interesting to see. Like, oh, okay,
how they track in the 1960s.
So, but Michael Shannon plays such a good bad guy.
He really does. Like,
oh gosh, he's like
every time you see him, you're like, oh,
I don't know if I like that guy or not.
You're gonna be a bad guy, except in Pearl Harbor that one time where you weren't a bad guy and you were just kind of slow.
The his fingers. That was so nasty.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
They're like
thanks for reminding me.
Infected, and he was like, it just yanked him off.
I forgot about that part.
Yeah, he's been through some stuff. Oh, hey, look, hey, my dad's tuned in. Hey, Dad, thanks for tuning in.
Hey, Jake's dad.
Hey, thanks for tuning in.
It's one of those that it's.
he said so. Fishman won't win.
Fishman won't win.
Fishman is not going to win. Unfortunately,
no. It will probably win visuals. It very well could be. I mean, Guillermo del Toro has been kind of cleaning up on the directorial awards. He might even win for oh gosh, what is it when it's not costume design, but it might be costume design. Visual effects
for just the
it won't win
costume.
Man. Costume will go to Phantom Thread.
Yeah,
like it's really funny because so many of these are like locks for different awards.
But not
Best Picture. This is the one time you're going.
Maybe they went into it like let's just try to win this.
Yeah.
Because really, all that they care about is you won an Oscar for a movie.
Sure.
Most of the time, people are like, oh,
and give Guillermo del Toro the director award. That's fine. It was a very ambitious project.
Give Jordan Peele the directorial award.
I agree, but if we're gonna, I mean, you can give Peele the writing one for sure.
Yeah, that is true. So I don't know,
but I mean, I won't complain if that's the case. I just know that it's going to. What happened?
Sorry, my dad just said the Post appeals to old people. We lived it, and that is probably true.
I can see that. My mother-in-law very much liked that movie when we saw it, and
it is true.
I need like a running.
My dad just says, "Who cares about Oscars?"
I do. We do. This is why we do a podcast.
That's why we're talking about it, Dad. We care about it. And
that's
really,
the worst.
Really, just the best nominees. So yeah, I mean that's probably a good point. But Shape of Water not going to win. So,
no.
I guess the last one we can talk about though.
This very well could win, and this is my pick.
All right.
It's not necessarily the one that I wish would win, because I agree. Get Out.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
if I'm being realistic and I'm looking at the other awards and the way that this movie is done,
Martin McDonagh is he's a heck of a writer.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna butcher this because my good friend Idris Garcia, shout out, he is a huge fan of Martin McDonagh and has like seen all of his movies and like reads the actual playwrights for a lot of these.
Yeah.
And it just so a little trivia behind this.
Okay.
He wrote this all in one gosh, what's it called? One copy.
Really?
Just all one copy. That's how he writes. He wrote it. He literally just sat down, start to finish, same exact thing, and just wrote it. There was no like segmenting or breaking up or adding things, and just literally just sat down, wrote some stuff that was happening, walked away, came back, wrote the next thing that was happening, walked away, came back.
That's crazy.
And then obviously gave copies to other people, but he literally wrote one copy.
That's insane.
And then made a movie.
It's just the way that this handles.
3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri.
3 billboards.
We haven't
outside Ebbing, Missouri.
Directed by Martin McDonagh.
I feel like the way that this has ended up influencing other things that have occurred recently, like after the Parkland shooting, there were 3 billboards in Miami that was calling out Marco Rubio for why he's not done anything on gun control. Like things like that, to where all of a sudden you're starting to kind of
laser focus.
Yeah, well, just like throwing in like, yeah, we can use this thing. It's one of those weird ones where all of a sudden you're seeing a copy of what's happening in the movies happening in real life, and it just happened again in actually in Hollywood, where they put up 3 billboards, same fashion, but dealing with the Me Too movements, and calling people out, time's up, and like dealing with the fact that like really we haven't arrested any of these guys yet.
Yep. How come? How come, Chief Willoughby?
How come, Chief Willoughby?
So this movie, I went into it with somewhat of an expectation, just because I had seen In Bruges and a couple of Seven Psychopaths, Martin McDonagh's previous works, which are also great. And I really did not like this did not at all pan out how I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
So for me, I was expecting this to be more of a lighthearted film, honestly. I was like, okay, this is going to kind of like a funny story between this mom and Woody Harrelson's character, the Chief Willoughby.
Yeah.
And that's not what
I read a couple of not non-spoiler
reviews.
Not even reviews, but like I just wanted to make sure, because Lee and I were talking about going to see it, and I was like, I don't want this to be something that's gonna be like super heavy and like super like, and then you start reading the things it's dealing about, and you're like, maybe this isn't the best like date night movie.
This seems a little depressing.
Seems a little much. Let's go see
Coco, which is great.
Lady Bird. But yeah, it you're dealing with like super heavy stuff, dealing with rape and murder and suicide and race, and you're dealing with police brutality and like all of this, like it literally hits all these segments where we're going, okay, we're dealing with this and this and this and this and this, and none of it's going to pan out the way that you think it's going to pan out. And when you think like, yeah, justice is coming, and you're like, oh no,
justice does not show up.
But it's also like, we can't get justice for this person, but maybe for someone else.
Well, and again, I think, yeah, it isn't, because you're thinking it's going to be all about like redemption, and it's going to be this whole chase where you're going to like. Have you seen Wind River?
No. With
Jeremy Renner. Almost it's a similar storyline, where it is dealing with a rape and a murder, and Jeremy Renner is kind of like and it's on an Indian reservation,
okay.
And he is like the land overseer, kind of just, I don't know what you'd call that. He's like
right, like the government dude in charge of.
But he's like pretty low key and doesn't like do a lot with the government. He kind of just does his own thing, and it's about solving this crime, figuring out who did it, and then getting revenge, essentially.
Right,
and then happens. But this one, you don't get that. It's and I think, unfortunately, like that paints a more realistic picture of how sometimes these things go. And I loved that line in the movie where he's like, sometimes these things don't come up, and then you'll hear some idiot in the bar bragging about something he did 10 years ago, and you'll get him. And
it happens.
It happens,
but
not the same guy, which is messed up too. That there's more people that do that.
Yeah, so you're dealing with like Sam Rockwell's character, who's like
Dixon,
super
racist
and police brutality, the whole 9 yards, and like very protective of his chief, and like basically does everything he can to kind of
protect him. Yeah,
protect him. And then when the chief's gone, like he kind of goes off the handles, but then kind of has this. He reads this letter
from Chief Willoughby.
After posthumously. It's posthumously.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Posthumously. And like while the police station's being firebombed by Molotov cocktails, which I mean the whole thing is a little ridiculous, but you're getting this moment where he's kind of reading this whole situation and he's realizing like, oh, I've been this way, and my mentor person is telling me that like maybe I should try a different route and be a good detective and a good cop, and my heart's in the right place. And then you kind of see him kind of change, and he's trying to find a way to crack the case. And
it was touching to see him like, he dove out of the police office with the case in his hand and drops it on the floor as he's being burned alive.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There was like a lot of like tied in like interarching like storylines where you expect one thing to go a certain way and then it goes a different way completely, where her ex-husband is the one who actually burns down the billboards, and you assume that it's actually Dixon because he was so upset over these billboards. And even like just like Peter Dinklage's character, I just loved how he covers for her, and then
but even that, they can't get past the prejudices that she has against him for being short.
And there is like, and I do think that Frances McDormand will win.
Yes, she will.
Best Actress, because she was just phenomenal in this movie, and I think this role is just perfectly cast for her too. Like I would almost believe that she might be sort of like this in real life. I don't know.
I can see that. Yeah,
obviously not as rough.
No, but like I could see that she's kind of just has that character. Like, whatever, I'm just gonna say what comes to my mind, and you're just gonna have to deal with it. And you're like, okay, thanks, Francis.
But they do. And my dad's saying this. It's called redemption, Jacob. But it is. I mean, it is a story.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. But it's not in the way that you perceive it's going to go down.
It's not redemption for really anybody. There's no end resolve. Like both of them are going to go kill this person, which isn't the solution, because they don't even know if it's the real person that actually did this.
Yeah, they kind of know it's not the guy that killed and raped Frances McDormand's character's daughter. But they know that he did something to somebody, whether that was when he was fighting overseas or, like something of the sort. And they're like, we don't have justice for our situation, but we can get justice for whoever it is that was there. And it's like even they're driving there and they're like, how do you feel about this? Do you think this is the right thing? And they're like, I don't know. Like, well, I guess we got till we get to Idaho to figure out.
Yeah.
End credits. And you're like,
that's it. That's the movie.
Cool. But it was, I don't know, there's something about it where you're like, it's so dark and it's dealing with so many different topics, but at the end you're like, yeah,
that feels right.
Yeah, this feels like the right.
And again, realistic character growth where like people just don't automatically change like this. And the idea that Woody Harrelson's character is going through cancer and he's well liked by the community, that created an interesting dynamic with her posting the billboards about him, and you saw their relationship too. They both actually really cared about each other.
Yeah, and even the joke was, he writes her a letter too, and it's just like, well, I killed myself, and I'm pretty sure everybody's gonna blame you, so at least I get a little bit of a joke when I leave.
That's why I paid for those billboards. Yep. You have to deal with it at least for another month.
Yep. So it just the way everything was handled was very much like, sometimes it seems like there's inaction, and sometimes there is inaction that's occurring, and sometimes we do need to kind of like
give them a little kick in the pants.
Yeah, and it just kind of happened where it was coinciding with the end of Woody Harrelson's life because he has cancer and it's really bad, and even he to the point where he's the one that pays for an extra month of the billboard because he's going, I think what you did is you actually put us back on the trail and made us rethink the way we were looking about this whole case. And
we're not, because I mean there was that one line where he's like, if I got rid of all the racist cops, or then there'd be none left and stuff. But that even that line, I think there was like a moment of recognition where he's like, I'm probably doing some things wrong here.
Is it? Yeah, there's some things wrong, but we also have to kind of deal with what we have, which I think even he says in that note, it's like, I'm not saying it's the right thing, but it's something we just have to kind of figure out and move along, which...
Yeah, and his character was interesting because like he was a well-liked guy, but he was like also like very gruff and like gross and like just like cursed a ton and like even we saw him like with his wife and stuff like that. You're like, oh, I don't know about all that, but okay.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think this has
very good chance of
a
winning.
very good chance of winning. I think there's a couple of knocks that I feel like this is going to end up coming down between
Get Out,
that, and Shape of Water.
I
think there's some knocks against Shape of Water, and now there's talk that maybe it borrowed its story from someplace else and didn't really attribute it.
Do you know what it?
No.
Oh, that's not good.
But I read that last week, and people are like, "Oh." So I think that kind of gives it enough of a knock that maybe people who were considering voting for that might not.
Yeah.
But I just think this one, when you kind of look across the board, this has the best shot of winning.
Yeah.
This was my number one.
And I think it makes sense from an acting standpoint and a story standpoint because we've never seen something like this.
No,
But also, we've never seen something like Get Out before either.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. In case anybody wondering, my 9 through 1, 9 was Phantom Thread. Just no chance. I'm sorry. 8 was The Post. It's not like it's a bad movie. It was good. I enjoyed it, but
yeah.
Call Me by Your Name at 7. Darkest Hour was 6. Shape of Water was 5 for me. Like I just didn't.
It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great.
Because Dunkirk put it 4. It had that kind of like impact of like, I know what happens because I know history.
Yeah.
But it felt like I didn't know that. Lady Bird at 3, Get Out at 2, or honestly, I should call that 1B. I think just kind of looking at the other awards that have occurred, I'm going to give it to 3 Billboards, but
yeah,
Get Out, I would be absolutely ecstatic if it won. Which would make it the first horror movie to win since Silence of the Lambs.
I'm trying to go here real quick. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
Mine are very similar to yours. I can't rate Call Me by Your Name because I didn't really put it in there, so just disregard that.
Sure.
But for me, I like The Post less.
Okay.
Sorry, Dad.
He liked Phantom Thread better than he liked The Post.
But barely. Both pretty weak for me, just from an interesting standpoint. And then 6, we had Dunkirk.
Okay.
5, Shape of Water.
Okay.
Again for you. 4, Darkest Hour.
So you flip-flop Dunkirk and Darkest Hour.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Dunkirk. Yeah, I gave it 6 because I liked Darkest Hour more than Dunkirk.
Okay, cool.
Just from
I no qualms with that.
Acting standpoint. I don't
Sure.
know why. 3, Lady Bird. 2, 3 Billboards, and then 1 for me. Get Out.
Cool.
So we'll see how it plays out.
We will.
I wish they did like a runners up and like did all of them ranked. Like
I know
which ones
that would be
got
awesome.
I'm sure they have those numbers somewhere, like which ones got votes
locked away in
some secret vault. They will never know. But that's it, guys.
Yeah.
This has been, let's see, an hour and 37 minutes. So once again, but we have to add on like a little bit extra time because we were paused for a while. Just
we
chilling.
were, yeah.
So tell us what your potential nominees are. We are going to be watching them tonight at 8. So we'll see what happens, and I'm actually very interested to see like best animated feature. I'm always
There's a lot of stuff I'm interested to see this year, just because I feel like, and I don't know if it's the same for you last year, but like now that you've seen a bunch of these movies, you're like, oh yeah, I can actually make assessments on all these other categories too.
I saw that person act. I saw that person act. Yeah. Whereas before, a lot of the nominations, you're like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. So yeah, I mean, all in all, we talked about this a little bit, but I do think compared to last year, there were not as a lot of good quality titles, and that's that just happens. But what is good, and I think this is another reason, and this is bad, but I think this is another reason why I think Get Out has a better chance of winning is because we had the whole Oscars So White
a couple years ago,
a couple years ago, and just looking at how diverse and interesting this panel is now. I mean, you still have a good share of white male directors, but what the movies are about and what they're addressing is very unique. A lot of them at least. You know, Lady Bird, Phantom Thread, not so much. But Shape of Water, 3 Billboards, obviously Call Me by Your Name, and Get Out. I mean, that's what 4 or 5 out of the 9.
Conversation. Good job, Academy Awards.
Yeah, so I think from a diversity standpoint.
But where was the nomination for Baby Driver?
Yeah,
tell me that.
So all in all, that is the end of our podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you did live, Dad, you're going.
Thanks, Dad.
Going hamsters in the comments there. But remember that BitCast is a weekly podcast that covers most things video games and pop culture. Zach, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, man, no problem.
And remember, if you want to, go ahead and follow BitBloggist on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, where we'll be posting all this stuff. Most of our live videos go onto Facebook because that's where our biggest audience is. Send topic suggestions or emails if you want to just let us know we're doing a bad job to bitcast@bitbloggist.com.
Real bad job.
But until next time, this has been BitCast. Thanks for tuning in. Let's talk about some stuff.